All right, next
All right,
gear.
yeah, you want to see this one? All right. This is
Oh,
Cole McCormick from well, for those of you listening, Cole McCormick's obviously the McCormick name is a killer name because his dad was a unbelievable skier and did all kinds of stuff back in the 60s, skied in the Olympics, gold medal in the Olympics. His son now is carrying the torch and doing it really well. So I'm excited. He's riding the La Pointe, which is a very wide ski especially under the front foot, but he rides it really well. I don't know, Matteo. What do you think he does? What do you think he does well? What's his strength?
well, as you keep playing the video, and I know maybe we'll disagree on this, but with left foot forwards, there's always the conversation of 2-4. Are they gonna get
Sure.
out of 2-4? How do they get out of 2-4? They have two offsides. They don't get to rev them that much, so you can easily. It's easy to fall into the trap of judging a left foot forward by how they turn 2-4. I mean, Cole turns 2-4. I rarely see hesitation there. I always see the tip of the ski coming around, and especially his mass moving towards where he needs to go afterwards, namely 3 and 5. So I think that's one of his strengths, and interesting, how he stays compressed into the ball, but then, gets out of it. And I mean, pretty fast too.
Yeah. Well, you said interesting. You said compressed into the buoy. That's because that's kind of like we've seen this before. We're going to see it for years to come. That's kind of what Dane Meckler does. Very well, unique style.
Yeah.
And I would love to speak to that. I don't know if it's in the scope of what we want to talk about today because we go another hour just talking about that. But you're right. He is again very balanced. Even though he's got some loose line, this probably was not his favorite 39 he's ever run in a tournament. But out of 2-4, he does attack. Even though it's a late turn sometimes, he's not afraid to get his body into it.
And
So go ahead.
to me, that's a strength.
Yeah.
Like you see too many left foot forwards, like being faulty of like four-itis or hesitation into their 2 and 4. I don't know that that's something that Cole necessarily struggles with. I mean, at least by judging the skiing I've been watching from him this year, which again has been insane.
Yeah.
I mean, second in Malibu Open. I believe he ended up third in the What is Ski Nation Tour. I mean, the guy has been consistently skiing well.
Did you just invent four-itis as a
I don't
word?
know.
Is
I
that a
mean,
new
we
vocab?
do have. Well, I mean, you're right foot forward. You've heard about five-itis,
I've
right?
never heard it called five-itis. But that's great. I'm
But
gonna
you know
start
what I'm
using that.
talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're right.
It should be on some disease manual. Four-itis and five-itis.
Exactly. Well, I will say my favorite strength of Cole's is this seems to be a common theme, and I hate to go back to athletic stance, which is, one of the things I talk greatly about at length, but that's what he does the best is no matter how he comes out of the buoy, he always, before he gets to the whitewater, he always ends up in a stacked position with his feet right where they need to be, which is behind the rope. And we'll talk about this later. I'm going to get to this with you, but
Yeah.
there's a fallacy in skiing that everybody thinks that you've got to get your ski between you and the boat before you accelerate, before you can accelerate. And that's just horse crap. That's not real. That's not true. And we're going to get to it later with some drone footage of Matteo. But to highlight Cole's strength, that's what he does best is he gets, no matter what happens in the turn, he gets back over his feet and he gets stacked really well before the first whitewater. And that is why he can continue to get to the next buoy, in my opinion. You see it here. Not a great clean four-ball. His tail slid so much that he almost fell off the back of the ski, but he didn't panic. He just continued to stay calm and composed, and now he's stacked again and ready to go on his offside cut. I think that's a key fundamental for a lot of people because a lot of us, as soon as we have a bad turn, we tend to think, okay, we got to pull harder. But the composure piece that Fred Winter has, that Will Asher has, that Matteo Luzzeri has when he's on point, that Brooke Baldwin has. Cole also has that. Even though he's got not the cleanest turn, he just stays composed, doesn't add any more, just gets stacked and moves his body in the direction he wants to go, keeps his feet behind the line on the acceleration phase.
I mean, it's impressive to me how solid of an onside cut he has, you know.
Yep.
Like one of the things that stands out to me with him, which is you don't see, I mean, at least I don't see a lot of skiers do, is how much he rotates his upper body, like at the end of his onside, right? But then the second he grabs the handle, you look at this, look how his right shoulder is coming around. But the second he grabs the handle, I mean, job's done, you know?
Yep, exactly.
There's no more movement.
Exactly. I think back to athletic stance, I know it's a some people think it's a BS thing and it's not that big of a deal, and give me something that actually will change my skiing is what a lot of people are thinking. Athletic stance, getting in the proper position once the load comes from the boat will change your skiing. And you can see it from Cole here on his offside cut through the gates. As soon as the boat starts pulling on him, his body's in alignment, his feet are behind the rope, meaning his body is perpendicular to the top surface of the ski, and he's stacked with his weight distributed evenly through his feet. And there's no way around that as far as, and like you said, no matter what happens in the turn, he gets back to that point when the rope comes tight. So what do you think he could do better?
Well, that's what I was trying to come up with. One of the things that I'm not so sure is that helpful, and I've noticed him doing at both at 2 and 4, is that he stretches his front leg so much after that compressed stance into the ball that he almost locks his knee. Look at it. Yeah, right there. Like locks his front knee. Yep. You know what I'm talking about when I say that?
Yep.
You know, and I feel that when you do that, it's hard to then, you know, drop into the turn in a progressive, smooth manner, right?
Yeah.
I see it a lot when I coach students here doing it in the glide, you know, like they're gliding for the gate and they lock their front knee to the point that they have to unlock it to then be able to turn, or they drop into the gate with their knee locked. And this goes for both stands, left and right foot forward, at the expense of position. So by the time the rope comes, they have to adjust, right? And sometimes you adjust well, sometimes you don't.
Sure. So I agree with what you're saying. I was just looking at the gates. He's nice and stacked on the gates with both legs about equal length. But like you said, coming into his offside turn, he does do that. So he's compressed here. He's kind of absorbing the new edge load, if you will. But then right before he gets to the buoy, he goes to straighten his leg. And in my opinion, he's trimming the ski out. In other words, he's flattening the tip. He's getting the tip lower so that he can continue outbound to make the buoy. It's just something he's learned to do. And you can tell by the spray coming off the ski. So here you see the spray coming off the ski at this angle. So that's like, I don't know. I mean, I could actually show the angle, I think. Go here. Yeah, so like 53-degree angle on the spray. Now, watch when he gets a little closer to the buoy and he trims the ski out right there. Look at the spray. I mean, this is extreme. Something happened. He hit a little bump or something. I mean, the spray coming off the ski right there is 14 degrees. That indicates that he did an extreme job of trimming the ski out before the buoy. And even here, even at the buoy, you see the spray is still much lower off the ski, which indicates that the ski is not tip high, the ski's tip down. But to your point, in doing that, because his body is basically his center mass here, this guy, because it's behind his feet are here, or his connection point, his front foot is there, he's too far back, he's too far behind his feet. So by pushing through his front foot to trim the ski out, it moves his mass, keeps his mass behind his feet. And so there's no, like we talked about with Brooke, the ability to rock, to be forward coming into the buoy, stacked, not, I hate to say forward, but to be stacked over your front foot coming into the buoy to keep the ski trimmed, gives you the ability to then transition and shift your weight back to create tail smear. If you're already back like this and you push through your front foot You can see the front leg is longer. There's no way to transition and rock back without falling off the back of the ski like he does right there. Because you're already back coming into it. So to your point, I think that is a fundamental deficiency. If coming into the buoy, like we saw with Ali, if right here through this transition zone, I would say to your point, I think it happens back here. I think he needs to start his transition sooner, honestly, or just be taller right here and not get compressed through the center of the weights. Because by getting compressed there, he has no recourse but to get more compressed through the second trough. And that allows the ski to shoot out here. You see how quickly the ski transitions out away from him. Now
it shoots forward.
Now he's chasing his feet. And the only way to really get back over your ski, one of the ways, is to trim the ski out right here, like right here. But instead, he starts to trim it out, but then he stays compressed. And so he never gets back over his feet. And to your point, the leg's straight. And the result is he's got to make a big move on that offside often, either engage the tip or in this case, jam on the tail and hope that he can get the rope tight before he falls off the back.
Yeah.
Hopefully this isn't too much for the listeners, because I know it's hard to follow along. But I mean, we're saying a lot of stuff, but we're trying to dig in. To dig into the complex, you've got to use words, but ultimately it's really simple. It's back to what Elizabeth talked about with you. It's back to what we talked about with Brooke. It's back to what people know. If you're standing upright on the earth and you don't want to move and you want to be stable, you have to be directly over your feet. And that's what we're saying in the buoy.
I think, yes, the simplest things can be teased out as, to a higher level. And I think this is like a way of helping you understand the simple things a little better, like teasing out. And the more ways in which you can understand it, hopefully the more it brings you back to that simple thing, right? That you're trying to achieve. Most memorable moment for you?
I mean, that's kind of a hard one, but I just like that he probably this year at Hilltop, he kicked some butt. He looked really good. He came up, skied well, ran 39, came all the way across the country to do it. And I don't know, I just thought that was pretty impressive. I mean, he's been breaking out over the last couple of years, but I thought that was really cool, in my opinion.
Yeah.
That was a moment.
Yeah, so. He skied at Hilltop. And he also skied, I would say probably, at least in my view, the tournament that really put him on the spotlight, I believe it was 2 years ago, for the 41 at LCQ. Was it 2018?
I think it was 2 years ago. That was a big score.
A huge
big score.
Early on, like not super late into the running order, really like putting up a massive score. Don't care what tournament it is. For the 41 is a big score. And from someone who maybe, he had skied a few pro events, but to me at least was unexpected. And then what I think Cole did amazingly well this year is that if you see him running for the 41 next weekend, it won't be unexpected anymore. Like he showed consistency at important tournaments over and over and over and over again. So, but to me, that memorable moment that was that for the 41, Cole McCormick, I'm like, oh, wow. Another one, another one getting to 4. Huge.
It's almost sickening, people making it look so easy. And he's, like he said, he's consistent too. It's not like he's not a one-hit wonder. He's making it happen consistently. And year after year, he's been slowly gaining steam. So
tailwind, different boats, different sites, like the guy's running 39 almost no matter what. So, that builds confidence into your gate at 41, which we know is big into getting to 3 at least. It's impressive stuff.
I agree. What's one thing you think he can do? Did we talk about this? One thing you think he should do to improve his skiing, or could do?
No, I don't think we did. See, with that one, I'm fought, because I would say like the same thing you said about Ali, namely like tone down the intensity a little bit, but also I see it as a very fundamental characteristic of the way he skis, you know?
Yep.
So I don't know. I'm a little thought about this one.
Do you remember that spray analysis we looked at coming into 2-ball from the boat angle?
Yeah.
Where the spray came off, as he landed, the spray came off really steep. So that spray, right here was really steep from the boat view. This is not the right view, but then suddenly it went really flat. And I said he trimmed his ski out. Watch the tip of his ski right there. See that?
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
He makes a big move. So right before that, he loads the tail. You can tell because the tip comes up just slightly. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. So right here, he loads the tail. So he's pushing through his back leg. Tip comes up. Yep. That increases the attack angle. The ski starts to come underneath him a little bit. So he pushes down on his front leg right there. And you see the ski trim out tremendously. But he's still behind his feet when he does that. And so it affects the outcome. And he's trying to load the tip to get the ski to come through. But then he gets too much lift. So he's got to rock to the back and keep the tip out of the water. But to your point, I think the intensity is his strength, right? I just think being a little bit more stacked right through center line, or a little bit taller, if you will, so that he can afford to not be so compressed right here through transition. Yeah. I think that's a big key. In other words, it just goes back to, and people may think it's funny for me to say that because I skied the opposite. I skied really compressed, and also they think West Coast slalom equals Terry Winter, Marcus Brown. The problem is there was only a couple things in that whole deal that we really identified with, main fundamentals. And more likely than not, if we could go back and redo that video and redo our whole platform, one of the things we would say is this right here, this getting compressed, this nature, this idea of getting compressed to let the ski transition to the new edge. Oftentimes people just do it because it's just what naturally happens, but it's not ideal. And in fact, we saw with Ali, the opposite is ideal. If you can stay tall, in other words, right here through the center line, he could stay a little taller and then not get so jammed and compressed right there. He would be better on the outbound move and more controlled. But to your point, back off the intensity a little bit right here. Instead of holding it.
Because I think it helps that, as you know, that's something I've been struggling with for forever. And what I've noticed is if I don't overdo into the first wake, like controlling that sort of squatting motion of the second wake is a little bit easier. So I wonder if, that could be one of the things that can help him.
I agree. Oftentimes it's so simple. The simplest explanation is often the right one. And I think the simplest explanation for 90% of skiers is to just the downswing into the center line. People can overdo it so much. We always thought that was the work zone. People always told us that. They can overdo that downswing to center line so much that it ruins the upswing. It ruins their ability to control the tension in the rope outbound, because the tension, you stretch the rope so much to center line, it's going to rebound and pull you to the inside before you can control it. And that's, I think, what we're seeing from Cole, just a little bit. So imagine if he could fix that. I think we'd all be in trouble, unfortunately.
Yeah. I think a lot of people will be in trouble.
His 135, his onside is unreal. Hey, I have a drone shot. Should we watch that real quick of Cole? This is from, we'll just do this and we'll move on. So this is from Hilltop Pro-Am, and we'll just run it in slow-mo.
What rope length?
39 from Hilltop.
Bam. What a one ball.
I know it's pretty good skiing. His onside is phenomenal, of course. You can kind of see that hiccup. I don't know if I should back it up. I'm going to. But you can kind of see what we saw earlier, where he comes into the buoy on the back foot, then trims the ski out right there.
Oh, right there,
See that spray change to come flatter off the ski? And then he tries to load through the tail to get the thing to move. But yeah, it's pretty good skiing. I mean, 39, in the Pacific Northwest, and he's strong. He's an ox. He's gonna be doing it for a long time.
No, I agree. Yeah, strength is definitely one of his strengths. No, let's put it that way.
Yes, strength is one of his strengths. Great, I like that. All right. What are you thinking?
I think we have Freddy, right?
Should we do Freddy? Oh, here he is. Here's the man, Freddie Winter. All right. Should we watch this through?
Yeah, let's watch it through.
39. See what we see. Again, I would venture to say that this is probably not his favorite 39 or 10.75 that he's run first round.
Yeah, but I guess we all took, first round for everyone. So that's what you get, Freddie.
That's right. Pretty composed.
See, that's, yeah.
It's amazing no matter what happens in the
fresh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Maybe because it's fresh in our mind about like downswing and upswing. But what I noticed right away is a lot of like patience at the onset of the downswing, right?
Yep.
I think one of the easy mistakes to do at any level, I mean, at Freddy's level or, 22 off level earlier, is to, sort of get your head back on the handle. Oh, the line is tight. Let's go. But as you see Freddy here, like really taking a progressive approach into the downswing and really control like his balance, his stance into the next ball.
Yeah. I would say one of his strengths, if not his main strength, is his ability, like you said, to no matter what happens in the turn. Again, it's similar to what I talked about with Cole, is to always find that stance, like instantaneously. It's like he can't do anything other than get back into his. I know he doesn't like to use the word stack or stance or whatever. I call it athletic stance, but he finds it immediately out of the buoy, and it serves him well because he doesn't overload on the downswing, so then he can control his swing on the upswing out to the next buoy. What else you see?
Yeah, no, this is. I still have my mind stuck on that a little bit. What else?
One thing, Freddie, that I will, since we're going to talk about it, one thing I think Freddie could improve on, and I know it's hard to say because he's a freaking world champion, but that's okay because I'm going to say it anyway, is if he was a little bit more, you see how right here on his gate cut, right as he approaches whitewater, when the ski is like, okay, I'm ready to go, I'm loaded, and it shoots right there, just a little bit. It just suddenly gets a little bit more ahead of him. If he could just, instead of allowing the ski to do that, which then gets him compressed a little bit and makes him hold his cut a little longer, you don't see the top of his ski until the exit of the whitewater into buoy 1 at 39.5 off. Instead of that, so that little where the ski gets slightly ahead of him and his knees move forward, if he could just allow the ski, keep his legs strong right here and just allow the ski to basically stand him up. So instead of his knees doing this with his hips and his up to his shoulders, if he could just end up a little bit more, and I'm going to back it up so you can see what I'm talking about, like that. So carry that position through to right here, then his knees, his hips would be a little bit more forward, his body would be a little bit taller, and as a consequence, the byproduct would be that he would already be coming out of his lean. So he would just naturally be starting the transition sooner if he could just resist with his legs right there. And a lot of skiers do this. And we're going to get to one of our Flow Point Method members. It's exactly what I'm going to talk about at 22 off, 32 miles an hour with our Flow Point Method member. It's the same exact thing, which is funny. We know it, but the truth is we're all working on the same stuff. So that's all I would say is if Freddie could just limit the knees moving forward and limit the butt from getting a little bit squatted right there, then he wouldn't need to hold his cut to second whitewater, and he would have a tighter line going outbound, and he wouldn't be slightly back on the ski. The same thing you talked about with Cole. Watch his front leg right before buoy. We all do that, but right there, he's pushing through his front leg. And I think ultimately it's because he's a little bit back coming into the buoy more than he would like to be. And
yeah,
again, we could next time we do this, dude, we gotta pick on one skier so we can get into like the finer details, because there's so much I want to talk about right now. But it's like
we can do it again, man.
It's midnight there. I can tell you're getting a little tired. We're gonna keep this short. But did you run out of tea? Did your tea run dry?
I ran out of tea. Do you see me going to the cup and there's nothing left?
Nothing left. Yep.
But
what do you see?
No, this is good. I think, yeah, you have already touched on it. But the thing to me that Freddy could improve is right as he's approaching, like right as the ski is about to approach 135. Seems to me that he's a little bit on a safety mode here, right? So I feel like there's plenty of room for him to regain his athletic stance right as the ball approaches and let the tail like smear around him. Whereas he sort of stays in this like, okay, let's see what happens mode, which oftentimes for him turns out into a good enough offside turn, right? And then really allows him to, get a cut and leverage on his onside turns. But it seems to me that if he were to be just a little bit more over his ski, right around here, it would allow him to be a little bit more consistent in the way in which he gets out of 135. Now, I understand perfectly what he's doing because, important tournament, you don't want to blow the tail on your offside. You sort of want to get out of it and go. But I wonder if that has become a habit of his that then doesn't let him take fully advantage of his offside turn.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, I agree. I think one thing that, like you said, one thing I want to highlight just about getting better as a water skier in general, you just kind of said it. It's like, where in your own skiing, folks who may be listening or watching, where are you okay with how things are? Like it's good enough versus where are you like focused on making a difference? And I think if you can find those things where you're focused, you're like, here are the one or two things that I need to really fix. And then just make the realization that this is going to take 4 weeks. This is going to take 6 weeks. And tell your ski partners and tell your ski friends and tell your coach, this is what I need to work on, or work on it with your coach and say, hey, how are we going to attack this? That's one of the things we talk about with the full point method is how are we going to attack change? How are you going to reprogram your movement? And that's a key thing that you said. If it's good enough, oftentimes skiers aren't compelled to address it. But it's figuring out what is the biggest deficiency in your own skiing and then coming up with a plan to improve it, to keep it simple each week or for a month to where you can actually go out and approach it from different angles until you are actually reprogramming. You have enough sets to reprogram that movement.
And it's funny how that works, right? Because I think, obviously, number one rule is reps, but it's informed reps, right? So how you're going to go about making the change that you have decided or someone told you will be good for you and you believed him or her, like it's reps and it's informed reps. Now, I feel sometimes that, and actually it makes a lot of sense, that a bigger change for a less experienced skier can be easier than a minor change for a high level skier, right?
Yes.
But then it gets, to each his own room of performance, right? So Freddy could work a year on a finer movement just to get to 5 F41 more often. Whereas, a skier at 32 miles per hour works on a much bigger thing, possibly for a shorter amount of time, and gains way more than just like a quarter buoy, but gains a pass and a half.
Exactly.
But the one commonality is the reps and not focusing on too many things. We've said it together so many times. But I find it quite entertaining to sit down and watch these great skiers and identify that minor thing, like we had to watch Cole from 4 different angles and taking the angle measurement thing to find one of the things he had to improve,
Exactly.
So, let's go to memorable moment, Freddie. I'll let you start.
Memorable moment. Oh man, I don't know. I guess
most memorable moment.
Well, it could have been Princess Pro-Am like 2010 when he was just some skinny kid with big hair. You know, I was skiing at the time, competing in, I think it was 2010 maybe. Yeah, I was like, oh, who's this guy? Who's this chap? He looks pretty good on the water. Definitely looked way different back then. And one thing I told Freddie last year was he probably has made, in my opinion, he's one of the skiers who's improved the most technically for year over year, I think, than most other skiers, who looks differently, visibly looks differently on the water. But I think probably when he came to the Cali Pro-Am a couple years ago at Belle Aqua, and like had just skied really well, you know, a week or two prior at another record tournament, and it was like, wow, what the heck's going on with this dude? Comes out and like absolutely killed it on a weird lake for him, and then in a different state, you know, than he's used to being in. And it's like, okay, this guy, I guess he's on the scene now. Now he's here. Now he's here to stay.
Yeah, it was 2000, either 13 or 14. It was like his first year I think his first year in Monroe. But I remember that tournament exactly, like came up, like a lot of the US public didn't know of him. And I think he smashed like 3.5 41 first round. And a lot of heads were turning, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now for me.
Oh, wait. Sorry.
Go on.
I was going to say Collegiate Nationals 2017, when he came back and skied his last year eligibility. Yeah. And he was trying to break the record, Willie's record of 3.5 41 at Bennett's. And he got had to take a little crap from people because he was doing one class online, which, you know,
exactly.
That's a different discussion. Monroe versus Lafayette. We don't need to get into that. UL versus ULM. But it is of note that was a moment in time where, you know, he wasn't afraid of the fire. He just walked right into it, said, I'm going to come ski my last nationals. Try to stop me. That was cool.
Yeah. And I remember someone from, what was it? Someone apparently at the nationals had a sign that said, skiers are in school. I can't remember the exact story. It's something like skiers go to college or something like that, not at the lake, or it was some play words like that. And then but I wasn't at that nationals.
No.
Now to me, I'm fought between two. One would be his first win at the under 21 Europeans, 5:39, or 3, maybe 3. Yeah, in Skarnes in Norway. I think it was his first win, like title event. And then first year of the San Gervasio Pro-Am, where I had to convince him and a few others to come and ski it despite the little money we had. And I think first round he went 5:41. Lake record, highest score ever skied in Italy at the time. First round, just bam. So
that's crazy.
That made a lot of pressure off from me and Dad and my coach and all the ones that were doing the tournament, you know, like, is it gonna work? Like, we're trying, and bam, 5:41 first round. So that was a cool memory of the start of something that ended up being pretty big.
I feel like you owe him some beers or something for that, because you're right. You put on your own event. Nobody's been there yet. You're like, how are people going to ski? Dude comes out 5:41. You're like, okay, we can breathe now. We got this.
I have paid my fair share of beers to Freddie over the years. I don't think he feels like I owe him in that regard.
Okay, good.
But
before we move on from Freddie, I wanted to show you an overhead drone shot I have of him from the Hilltop Pro-Am.
Yeah,
I want to talk transition and buoy approach a little bit more with Freddie. So, can you see that 39 10.75? This is out of, I think, 2-ball into 3-ball, and one of the things that we talked about was that, you know, being kind of compressed through the transition and maybe ending up a little bit too far on the back of the ski. We talked about it with Cole a little bit, and we talked about it with Freddie. Notice when he lands on his new edge. Notice the width of the ski path right here. And I mean width because the width of the ski path indicates how much the ski is smearing. So the narrower this path, say if this path was that narrow, the ski would be smearing less and tracking more. In other words, it would be moving in the direction that it's actually facing or pointing. And you can also tell by the amount of the angle that the steepness of the spray comes off the ski with right here. So those are good indicators as you move forward in time, listeners, to watching what the ski is actually doing. So you can see when he first lands, the spray comes off quite steep right there. But then as he comes into the buoy, he trims the ski out, and you see the spray is coming off a little more shallow now. And that indicates that he's trimmed the ski out. And you can tell by the skier path right here, it's not quite as wide, that ski path, this path right here. So I guess my whole point with this is skiers always end up, the really good ones always end up, before they get to the buoy, they always end up trimming the ski out. In other words, getting the tip down so that they can reach buoy width without skiing back into the boat. If he had maintained that smear position right here where the ski was smearing, you can see the ski kind of turns and it wants to go inside the buoy. But the touch and feel skiers that are really good are able to get their body back over the ski to trim it out. However, I think if Freddie could do it better, he would run 41 every time. Think of Brooke Baldwin. Brooke Baldwin into her onside turn, how she got the water to break 6 inches plus ahead of her front toe. That is what we're looking for into the buoy, so that this droopy line syndrome right here, that droopy line doesn't happen. And the way that doesn't happen is if there's less of an inward component on the ski. So as soon as he lands right here and starts to smear, there's a force vector inside, pushing him inside continually as he approaches the buoy, pushing him inside. And you don't necessarily want that. Ultimately, what you want is less of a force vector on your feet, so that the rope can be pulling you, and you can be swinging around the pylon outbound. So I don't know if that makes sense, but that's what I see with Freddie. And again, he's running 41, so it's hard to argue with his moves. But you can even see here, and every skier does it, but right through the first part of the new edge, you see how a ski smears, and the tip is pointing inside the buoy, but then he flattens it out right there, just enough.
Yeah.
My contention is if he didn't pull as long, then he could do with less smear, and he would be swinging around the pylon better. And if he land a little bit more over his ski right here, he would have a tighter line and be able to control the finish of his turn just a little bit better. But again, we're splitting hairs, so I'll quit.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, from what you just explained, I see that being more of an issue on his offside approach than on his onside. Yes. Because, I mean, I see, and then we could get into a conversation that will last way too long about like differences between offside and onside, which I am a big proponent of. I feel like they're almost two different worlds. And if I were to see those worlds in Freddy, I see the approach into his onside seems to be more consistent and more controlled compared to that little bit of space before the offside. Sure. What am I watching here?
This is 39 again from the Hilltop Pro-Am. From
another pass?
Another pass, yeah. This was in training. So, yeah, it's pretty cool angle to get to see some of this stuff that we're talking about. One thing that Freddie does really good, I want to actually highlight this before. Is this going too long? Do we need to stop?
No, we do whatever we want.
Okay, good. So one thing Freddie does really, really well, and incidentally, Nate does this really well too, so this is the point at the finish of the turn. This is 5 maybe or 3 at 39. You can really see from this angle, the ski right here is when he starts to load through the back foot and starts to get the ski to smear. But if you're too far back on the ski, in other words, if your weight is already too far back, approaching the buoy or approaching apex, and then you try to make this tail move, this load through the back move, this front to back rock, then you end up falling off the back of the ski a little bit. Especially as the line gets shorter, this gets more critical. But what Freddie is one of the best at is he keeps he kind of hunches forward right here, allows his leg, his hips to drop back to really let the ski tip come up. That's obviously, we always thought that was bad, but what it inherently does is it allows him to drive the tail of the ski into the water, continually drive the tail of the ski into the water through the finish, while keeping his mass essentially. So you've got his back foot, I'm going to draw it just if I can, back foot here to his hips, but his hips to his shoulders is forward. So essentially his center mass is still somewhere right here. Does that make sense? So by jackknifing his body, he's able to not only dig the tail of the ski in, but then he consequently brings his shoulders forward to keep his mass moving through the finish of the turn. And what this tail of the ski does by digging the tail in is it allows the ski to stop. He keeps the rope tight, and then he doesn't lean away from the boat until you see his ski flatten out. He allows his body to land over his front foot, and then he accepts the load from the boat. So that is a key element that we talk about to cope with a bad position. I know people are talking about the best line, the ideal line. If you do everything right, it all happens naturally. That's great in theory. What happens when the shit hits a fan? Freddy's one of the best at managing. So he smears the tail. He realizes he's going to be skiing into the boat a little bit, meaning loose line. So he continues to drive through that back foot, but his shoulders come forward. He eats the line up with his arms. And then as the ski, because he dug the tail in, as the ski slows down and brings his feet back underneath him so he can accelerate, then he loads away from the boat. He doesn't load away from the boat too soon.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that's what I alluded before about like that extra little bit of patience in the downswing, right? Like, so like the way I see it is like letting the boat go away from you so that you can get control and into an acceleration.
I agree.
It's a really cool angle.
Yeah, you can kind of see what I'm talking about here, where he lets the ski shoot through, but because the tail is dug in, essentially what I mean by that is right here, he creates a high attack angle. So you see the ski sticking way out of the water like this. That means that he's trying to climb out of the water. But that just creates an inefficient situation where the ski is now decelerating. And he's doing it on purpose. He's learned to do it on purpose so that the ski and his feet, because they're both connected, will slow down and stop moving through. And then now his body gets pulled by the boat right back over his feet. And then he lands on his front foot. Feet are slightly behind the rope, and he accelerates and can make the next turn. He runs 41 like that. And it's not ideal, but he's making it work. And that's a coping mechanism. It works really, really well. Okay. What else do you want to talk about?
I don't want to talk about me.
Here's okay, Matteo. We're going to talk about you only for the purpose of showing people once and for all that you cannot let your ski get between you and the boat. If I hear that one more time, getting the ski under the line, getting the ski between you and the boat to be able to accelerate, I'm going to blow my lid. That is not how water skiing works.
If you can use footage of me to make a point, I'm honored. So go ahead.
All right, here we go. So 38 off. Let's just set the scene. We're testing skis at my lake last fall, a little over a year ago. So you're on a ski you've never ridden. So I want to put that out there so people aren't like, well, that's how he normally skis, because it's not. But the fundamentals remain. So what I want you to know is 38 off, rope's really short. You smear the ski nicely. You keep the rope relatively tight. And you can see what I'm talking about, where you move the tail through, and right there, now the ski's at a high attack angle, so it will slow relative to your body. So essentially it's like you're pinning your feet here, and the boat's starting to pull your body that way. So there'll be a nice rotation like this to get your body back stacked. Watch it right there. Now, what I want people to notice is your body is essentially perpendicular to the ski. Okay? And this is the key fundamental that Mike Sider had years ago. If we wouldn't have done anything else other than listen to him talk about how you have to move your mass in the direction you want to go, that is the ultimate fundamental water skiing. Look at the pull from the boat here. from the handle to the boat. Do you notice anything? I'm going to draw it better. From here to the boat. Let's say that's the line of action of the boat. Where are your feet relative to that line of action?
Actually, you know what? They're behind, and it's funny. They're further back than what it feels when you ski.
I agree.
It makes sense to you?
Yeah, your feet are behind the line of action. That's the only way you can accelerate on a water ski. I don't think people are quite clear on that, and that's why I love the fact that you were able to see that, and that's why I love this angle, because it really shows to accelerate, you have to have your feet behind the line of action, all the way to up until center line. You can't keep that to center line. Through center line, if you do that, you're going to explode. You see right here at the first trough is where your feet start to advance ahead of the line. But I know it's painful to watch yourself, and I'm sorry, but that's what I wanted to show was coming out of the buoy, the line of action and the way in which every skier has to accelerate is with your feet behind the rope. Your ski is not between you and the boat. Your ski is behind that line of action between you and the boat. It's not an anomaly. Let's look at the next cut, offside. Okay, you were a little late and fast. You had to smear the tail. Your ski is literally 90 degrees, dude. Look at that, boss.
Yeah, I like to ski hard.
Freaking boss. Look at this smear. Look at this smear path. Look at how wide your smear path is right there. Your drift path. So this side represents the tip of the ski, and this side obviously represents the tail of the ski. The ski is basically like sideways through that part of the course. It's awesome. But point is, watch when you land. Okay, you got a little high-sided, but as soon as you start to accelerate, look at this. The line of action.
Feet are behind the rope.
From the shoulders to the boat, the feet are always behind it. Feet are back here. Always. So I hope, if nothing else, people can take that away from this session, that you want your feet, you want your ski slightly behind the rope and slightly not between you and the boat, but slightly behind you and the boat on the way into the wakes. You want to be stacked over your feet, and that means your feet have to be behind the rope going into the wakes. And that's what the best skiers in the world do.
But then help me understand this. Why does it feel that the feet are not where they look like? Do you see what I mean? Like, as I ski, I feel that the feet are like under the line.
I know.
Like, to say it fully.
So two things, I think. Number one, because we've always been told to get your feet between you and the boat before you can lean against the boat, before you can load the line, right? And for some reason, people think if your feet are behind you, that you're going to go out the front. But the other reason I think it might feel like your feet are further ahead than they really are is because your upper body actually, not you, just yours, but everybody's upper body is essentially from the knees to the head is essentially, looks like it's almost in line with the boat or in line with the rope. Here's the rope coming from the boat, and there's your line of action from your shoulders to your knees. So it almost does look like everything's in alignment, right? Yeah. But it's not the case when you look from your knees down. So ultimately, what you have to do to get the full picture is draw a line from your shoulders to your feet. And you see that even if you do that line is still, the feet are still behind the rope.
Definitely not, yeah.
And the reason this is so...
That makes it clear.
The reason this is so is, and I'll try to do this simply. So let's draw the ski, okay? So the ski is let's say that this is the line of attack of the ski. Tell me if this is going to get too much. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the force vector, just a line to represent the force of the water on the bottom of the ski. So the force of water, almost always, it can only act perpendicular to the ski. So the water is acting probably right about there and in that direction, perpendicular to the ski. Let me redo that. The water's act is a certain drag force. So when you add it all up, the water's acting probably like that. Okay? That is where the water is acting on the ski in this fashion, right there. So it's resisting the force from the boat because the boat's pulling you this way, right?
Yeah.
And to get the true total amount of inward force on your body, you basically, this is going to be weird, I'm sorry, but some geeks will get it. You draw that component and you draw this component. So from the rope, you have that amount of inward force. Let me redo that just a little bit so it's a little cleaner. We're going to go
I get it.
So that's the forces, or that's the rope tension from the boat. That's the rope's inward component. So that's the acceleration from the rope. And then we got to do the same. We got to do the same for the ski. And if I could draw, it would work. But it's going to be the same thing here. And I'm going to go just a little further so you can see. But essentially, that is the amount of acceleration from the ski. So you see the rope is pulling you inward towards the wake, but also the ski is. So if you get your ski between you and the boat, which often happens, people actually fall out the back, or they load the rope and they don't go inward. So I know that was really in depth, and I'm sorry, but I'll get into that more later.
It's a good one.
So you don't want to see yourself from the shore?
It's not really how I've been skiing lately.
No, this is again testing. I wanted to show how friggin' boss this two ball is. Look at this, dude. Look at this turn. I think you have one of the best, if not the best, heel side turns in the business. Look at that, dude. Are you kidding me right now? Rope stays tight. Look at that. Unbelievable. Yeah. No, you don't like that? I mean, let me say that's overkill. You don't need to turn like that. But just the fact that you can do it for video purposes, because I want to make videos that make people fired up about water skiing. I love that.
That I can see. Yes, that I can see.
Yeah. What ends up happening?
Is it the best two ball to round 41?
No.
I don't know.
What ends up happening is this, and this is what we talked about previously with Ali, right? Like being able to stay tall through the transition limits the speed with which the ski can do that. You see how quick the ski gets away from you.
Yeah. And luckily, I think that's the thing I've improved the most on this year. But still painful to watch how it was.
Well, again, this is a ski that you hadn't ridden before. So.
Yeah, we did a lot of that week.
That week we did a lot of that. Okay, so this is Shep. He's from the Northeast. He's from New England. And he's one of our Flow Point Method members.
What I'm already seeing from these few turns seems a little like handsy to go back to the handle, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like it seems like he's not particularly comfortable with one hand on the handle. You know, wants to get back to it pretty quickly, except from this last turn that I saw. So, could be a lot of things. Could be just like, probably not feeling particularly balanced into the turn, or in his case, also in the glide because he's doing a one in the gate.
Yep.
But it could also be just like feeling that need of going back to the handle quick so that I can accelerate, which oftentimes ended up working against you.
Sure.
That's the first thing that I see. I see a big smile on his face here. That's good.
He's a cool guy. He's always fired up. Here's what I would say. I think kind of what we talked about with Freddie Winter earlier. I think this moment before the first trough and before the wake crossing is a key critical moment for a lot of skiers. And I feel like right here, if he was more stacked, in other words, from the knees down, looks great. Like this down looks awesome. But he's sitting in a chair and then goes up to his shoulders. So ultimately he's not extended, or what we would say Brooke was really good at, being stacked completely. I feel like that's where Shep could be if we just change the color so you can see what we would hope he could do is hips here and then shoulders there with his head on top. You see just being a little bit more forward and a little bit more extended. What that would allow, in my opinion, number one, he would be getting more out of this cut. So the ski would be more trimmed out, if you will. And when I say trim, I hope people know, I mean, instead of the ski being on this attack angle, the ski could be a little flatter on this attack angle. which would create more speed and acceleration for less line tension. But the result of being compressed right here before you hit the wakes is then you're already lower to the water. So then you have to absorb more right here. So you end up getting even more compressed. It's like compounding. So the more stacked and balance you can be, the better athletic stance you have before the first trough, at no matter what line length, the better you'll be able to cope with, in my opinion, this transition phase. And you see, it's just really hard at 22 off, or maybe it's 28 off, 32 miles an hour. It's really hard to deal with that rooster tail.
Yeah. No, I see it for sure. And I think
must not be a MasterCraft is all I want to say about that. Oh, there's 22 off.
It's 22 off, so even harder. But I think one of the things that allows you, see, like here, he absorbs the wakes in his offside pull, maybe more out of habit though than, because I see that position being better here into his first wake. Mm-hmm. What I would say is, to me, one of the things I've been preaching for a while now is like your turn is your opportunity to prepare yourself for the downswing, for that position. And sure. I feel that if he was just a little bit more patient, like going back to the handle,
right there,
right?
Yep.
Right there. Exactly. Yep. Then I feel it would give him the time to get into the position that will allow him to be stuck the way you talked about into the first wake, right?
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
I think that's one of the things he might be able to play around with.
I agree. The other thing I want to note is that oftentimes a lot of really good skiers, I think one thing they do really well is their hips are slightly dissociated from the direction their ski is pointing. In other words, Shep, so for Shep here, I would say if he could just get a little bit of more slack from his ankles to his hips, that would allow his hips to rotate one way or the other way a bit easier. I don't know if that makes sense, but what happens is you watch Shep, his hips are kind of always facing the direction that they're facing one direction relative to the ski kind of all the time. And what that ends up doing is limiting the ability to get your body in the right place on your ski. And part of that is, like you said, going back to the handle really quick right there. I think that's a big part of it. And so he's kind of steering with his front leg and driving through his back leg and seeking that handle instead of being a little bit more stacked over the ski. You see how the water's breaking by his front foot and his front leg is really straight. Now he's already back behind the ski. And so it's really hard to do anything other than kind of just snatch the handle, So I think it goes back to what I was saying was I think it's both what you said and what I said. You got to kind of find that compromise and figure out which one you want to work on first. But being better able to accept that load from the wake and not get compressed through the transition would allow him to not have to pull so long, and then he could stay over his feet better into the buoy.
Yeah, because it gives you the impression at a certain point there as he approaches his offside that he is on his feet, right? But again, by overcompensating like with his shoulders, and if you're a little stuck in the back and your hips are blocked, you can't really get away from that bent position, right?
Yep.
So it's all a step before. It's always a step before.
It's always a step before, but again, we've talked about this. I think changes come in twos. I believe changes come in twos and pairs. So in other words, if we tell Shep to be better here on a stack into the wakes, then that's going to completely change his trajectory into the buoy. So he's going to have to change another thing over here because he's going to be on a different line. I think that's what a lot of times skiers fall short because they'll do something, they'll try something, they'll actually nail the execution, but then it'll change their line or their look into the buoy or into the wakes, and then they're like, nope, doesn't work for me because I got slack in the next buoy. instead of realizing, okay, because I made that change prior, now I've got to make a second change to actually balance it back out. I think that's something that I don't know how to articulate that in a better way.
No, but I understand. No, I mean, of course. I mean, I can remember at least 3 or 4 guests that told me that in different words, right? So they would try something that their coach or they believed in, and the scores dropped, but because, you know, the look was different or the rhythm was different, and not knowing possibly that there was a second step on top of it, that with the two together, then it would have, you know, brought their skiing to the next level or improved their consistency or whatever it is they were trying to do.
I agree. One thing I will say is I think a big deficiency in most people's skiing, we've talked about this, is that upswing, if you will. But I think a lot of those problems, and you and I have discussed this prior, a lot of those problems arise from too much energy in the system on the downswing. Too much rope tension, too much body load, too much ski load. And I think now that I'm watching this, just if Shep changed nothing other than just that's enough load right there, and then as he approaches whitewater, just starting to allow himself to get pulled up by the boat and not trying to hold the cut through that trough right there, the ski's loaded when he hits the trough, the rooster. But if he just was allowed himself to start to get pulled up right there, it's 22 off, 32 miles an hour, he would be better equipped to handle that load because it wouldn't be as much. And then he would be better suited and he'd have a more appropriate speed right here. But oftentimes you see skiers always end up getting slack at the buoy and they don't understand what they did wrong in the turn. But oftentimes it starts with the downswing, and you put too much energy into the system on the downswing to not only appropriately hit your next turn, but also to be able to manage this outbound move, the upswing. If you put too much energy on the downswing, the upswing's already screwed.
Yeah, it's kind of like like a release of energy, and then you're just sort of like waiting for the ski to slow down rather than like controlling the upswing and being balanced.
Yep. You've talked about that when we talked previously on the Flow Point Method podcast about trying to manage and balance that out so that you are in relation to the boat, you're making your move at the right time. And when you're free skiing, you can feel when the right time is and just start to move back in. Once you get good, once you get a couple free ski sets under your belt, you start to move back in and you know what that feels like. But if the buoys are there and you have the free ski feel in your mind, but your rhythm starts to get off, that's when you start to do things like rotate, drop the shoulder, load the rope into the wakes, shoot the ski, snatch the handle.
Yeah, I think it goes back to what we said, like a properly ran pass feels a lot like free skiing and the buoys happen to be there, you know?
Yep, exactly. Okay, I think we probably bored people enough. What do you think?
Yeah, I think we did enough. Let's just do a little bit of small talk. What are you up to these days?
Well, hold on. I'd be down to do that, but I want to show Freddie Winter running 41 off and almost running into the boat. Do you want to see this? Should we do this?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Freddie will love it.
Show me some 41 off 6 buoys.
We can do small talk. So Freddie Winter at the Western Regionals, when he came out to help with the MasterCraft launch, I just want to show how much of a beast this guy is. And I don't understand how he's doing it. I mean, I understand how he's doing it. I just don't understand how he does it all the time and takes the falls that he takes. But like, for instance, your 2 ball is phenomenal, and so is his. He pivots on his elbow right there, like Maple. It looked like Maple.
Oh, actually. Nice.
Spray in the face, yeah. But look, like we said, he always lands back in his stacked position, right?
Yeah.
Always. And he doesn't ever overload on the cut. Let's see what happens here at 3. By the way, you can cut this out so your viewers don't have to listen to us watching video. No, that probably sucks. Look at this. Catches the tip of the rope. Digs the tail in. So you see what I'm talking about with digging the tail in? This is an extreme case, but by doing that move right there, now he's able to wait till the ski's digging in, so the feet will come back underneath him, the rope pulls him forward, lands back over his feet, gets on his way again.
Yeah, I'm gonna predict a massive 4-ball here, even just from the facial expression.
Look at these. It looks like what's he doing? Looks like his head's out a car window. It doesn't look like he's actually trying. He's just got wind in his face. There he's trying, gritting the teeth. Wasn't that big. He needed a bigger one, I think. Look at this. Look at this 5-ball. Unbelievable. Yeah. So right here he got compressed. And see how he's back on the ski? He didn't get the speed he needed out of the turn, I think, plus he was late. And he stays back. Now he's like, shit, what am I gonna do? Oh, I'm gonna throw I'm Freddie Winter. That's what I do. I'm gonna throw the ski around the buoy and then I'm just gonna step onto the platform. Why don't I? Oh, boat spray in my shin. I like that. Feels good.
Here's the handle, Marcus.
Take the handle. All right. Well, that was fun while it lasted. Guy's a beast.
So, getting ready to ski, was warming up for a ski ride. It's December 2nd. It's like 64 degrees. People are skiing here at the ridge. And I was thinking about the warm-ups I do before I ski. I was thinking about the visualization I used to do before I skied every single ski ride, tournament or practice. I was thinking about training in the gym. I was thinking about the mental, the mindset, the nutrition piece, and the technical, all the technical knowledge it takes to better yourself as a water skier. And I realized, like, there has been no future with regards to how to approach becoming a better skier until now. That's what we're really providing. We are believing at the Flow Point Method in a future where you have the tools necessary, you have all the resources that you need to chart your own path, to take your own skiing into your own hands and take the components, the 5 pillars, technical, equipment optimization, fitness, nutrition, mindset, and to really bring them all together into one place where you guys can log in whenever you want, computer, iPhone, iPad, doesn't matter, and start to develop an understanding of how the sport really works. Again, information isn't king, it's implementation. Implementation is how you go from good to great. It's how you find your potential, reach your potential. It's how you become the skier that you know you can be. So having the information is 10% of the battle. Figuring out how to implement it, how to use that information, how to synthesize it into your own skiing to really change your on-water performance. At the end of the day, we want to ski better, we want to ski longer, and we want to be more consistent. We want to have better sets, more days out of the year. That's what the Flow Point Method is all about. It's really a shift in the paradigm, if you will, as far as how to approach your water skiing. And we're really stoked to be able to offer this program, and we're hoping that you guys can tune in more, leave a comment. What do you want to hear about? What do you want to know about the Flow Point Method that you don't already know? Who is it for? It's for every skier, by the way. What does it entail? We can get into more detail. If you ask the questions, let us know what you want. Try out the free trial. It's a 3-day free trial if you log on to flowpointmethod.com. And we're really stoked on this program. So give it a go. And I'm going to go take a ski right now.